Good afternoon. I'm Seafood Dave Charlesworth here from KAJUKENBO Napoli, and I've got Senior Grandmaster Anthony Jimenez with me here tonight. I wanted to make a quick video. Well, maybe not such a quick video, so I apologize in advance here for probably the length of this video, but it's definitely something that I think you all will be interested in seeing. It's one of those things where I know that there's a lot of people out there that have done this kind of research. Um, and probably come up with the same or similar conclusions that we're going to discuss here today. And I'm kind of wondering why there aren't more historians or senior, black belts in Kajikembo that are bringing this stuff up and at least discussing these things. And talking about these things that we're going to go over today. But it's good to see you tonight here, Senior Grandmaster. You got anything you
Uh,
want to say before we get started on this journey of chaos?
Well, I hope you had a good New Year and good Christmas and stuff. And it's good that you've gone through and went through a lot of hard work researching all this. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that don't know certain things that you're going to enlighten them with, pretty much proofs, videos, letters. So it's a good little video, and I don't know if it's gonna be little, but it'd be a good thing for people to be able to see. Uh, Sometimes the real truth comes out, you know.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
we're not out. You're not out to hurt anybody or try to start anything, but it's just bringing out some facts and good reading. Good watching video to watch and stuff. So a lot of Kajukenbo practitioners out there will be able to pretty much see the truth.
A lot of preparation went into this video. In fact, I've been kind of quiet here recently, and this is probably one of those reasons why is because uh, I've done quite a few interviews with some grandmasters in Hawaii and things like that. And then I had to go through my notes and through some transcripts and things like that. And then, of course, all of the screenshots and everything that were shared back and forth and things like that. And I've tried to come up with a pretty decent, you know, group of things to show you all. But just like when I made the BOA standards video, to be honest with you, I wasn't trying to dot anybody in the eye. I was just trying to show that there is some disparity on the way things are done. I showed you black and white what it says in the BOA video, and I'm going to show you that again tonight. And then I'm going to show you what was on my family tree. Okay, those things are indisputable facts. Those are not things that are made up or me just trying to cast shade on somebody. Those are things that are in black and white that are available to anybody and everybody in Kajukenbo. Um, so please, by all means, don't take this as me trying to dot anybody in the eye, but it is a discussion I think that's worth having. And I think it's something that we need to discuss because let's face it, there's not been nothing but chaos in Kajukenbo ever since Sijo died. And he kind of knew that was going to happen. When he died, he said the snakes are going to come out. And to be honest with you, it's kind of funny that he called the board of advisors the boa, because what's the boa? It's a snake. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up some screens to share with you all. So bear with me here for a second. Okay, so here we are. You should see my first screen here, and I wanted to start off here because basically there's a lot of disrespect, amongst different people in Kajukenbo. There's a lot of disrespect going on in some of the social media chat rooms and things like that. There was a couple big incidences that took place in the Kajukenbo Trading Society and also in the pit. Uh, and the sad thing is that stuff was actually supported by some rather senior people, including a couple BOA members that actually made comments in both of those situations, in the Kajikemba Training Society room and also inside the pit one when that happened. So I'm going to start off here with one comment here that was made here by Rick Kenji, where it starts talking about he's talking about Kajikembo. Okay. It says Kajikembo forever. We know Kajikembo will be around way after all of us are gone from white belts today, ninth degree grandmasters. But what's important is that we keep Sijo's dream of what a grandmaster is and what we do to keep his legacy strong alive. We would go out at any age as a grandmaster and physically teach our branch of Kajikembo, or will we sit behind a keyboard and post old stuff with pictures of us doing seminars or teaching at our schools, whether it's a garage or park or post stuff 20 to 30 years ago, or we go around and creating a federation, organization, or association under our name and start promoting people around the world who really don't deserve above those who have spent years training, getting busted up and bruised, lost money building school to teach KAJUKENBO. Well, what the fuck? There are so many active grandmasters, and you guys know who they are, along with Professor Sijo Sifus that have learned the respect from us, all you guys out there, and you know who they are, and you know the ones there that are cheating the system for their own gain, rather it be for money or to build something that they don't have here in the United States. I totally apologize if you feel I'm talking about you, and if this does upset you, then I am. Just my feeling, I think it's my feeling, seeing all what's going on out there, and thank you guys for keeping KAJUKENBO in the ranks alive by waiting, training, and earning it. Okay, which some would think that that's a good statement to make, but I'll be honest with you, that was a flat-out attack, and definitely something I would not expect out of a senior grandmaster and the leader of the BOA. So these are the kind of things, okay, that we need to talk about, I think. And matter of fact, during those two incidences that I was talking about, one of those things I brought to one of the grandmasters, who's also a BOA member, and I said, "Hey, your guys are in here talking smack," and he just said a bunch of disrespectful stuff to a grandmaster, and I don't think that's appropriate. You should probably talk to him and put a stop to it. And his response was that he was proud of his guys for sticking up for KAJUKENBO, which is not what happened. And for those of you who are there, you know dang well what I'm talking about. But with that said, I wanted to go ahead and talk about some things, especially when we talk about disputes over rank and validity of rank. And specifically, one that's been a hot topic is your rank there, Senior Grandmaster. So I got a copy of your certificate here, and I wanted to talk about it really quick. And I'd note on here that, it states that I, Sifu Gabriel M. Vargas, and Sifu Aldecascos, okay, promote you, okay, to Grandmaster Ninth Degree. And of course, it's signed by Gabe Vargas, Aldecascos, Robert New. Now, you note that those three signatures are typed in on this certificate. Okay, while it does say up here, I, Sifu Al, and or Sifu Vargas and Sifu Aldecascos are promoting you, there's three names down here signed. Okay, and then it's also signed by Great Grandmaster Al Novak, Grandmaster Pete Morales, and up on the top by Grandmaster Alan Reyes. Okay, so this is KAJUKENBO royalty here, and this is February 11th of 2011. Okay, I mean, I think that's a pretty bold statement right there, and I would acknowledge also that Sifu Gabe Vargas was the president of the KAA at the time. And he also stamped it with the KAA stamp that's his because he was actually the owner of the KAA. And this is the old KAA prior to the reborn KAA that is of today. And I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to speak to on your certificate here, Grandmaster, but I'll give you
these guys that who are my signed up certificates, I've known them, oh my God, for years and years and years, not 3 or 4 years. I'm talking about 30, 40, almost 50 years. Al Novak, when I remember Al Novak, I was only a white belt. And he was one of the senior judges, and he was like an icon, Alan Reyes, me and him were very close, very close. In fact, one time I was almost going to be under him, and we had discussed it and stuff. And of course, I was, I started with Vargas and Grandmaster Gaylord and stuff like that. Robert New, he trained with the same teacher. My first teacher was Herbert Luke from Hawaii. And I'm talking about in the 60s and 70s, around 70. And him and Robert New, he used to teach Robert New too. That's how we kind of like have a little background together on that and stuff like that. And Pete Morales, he's one of the best and the nicest guys you would ever meet. He had nothing bad to say about anybody. He was just a great man. He put out a great lineage of students and stuff like that. Me and him were friends for years. He's always had my back. So these guys are like, they're not somebody I could have had, I could have had 30 signatures on there, 50 signatures on there, have people sign it, but I didn't know them, or and ask to sign it. I didn't want them to sign my certificate. I only wanted people that knew me and they were top, like you said, royalty martial artists. Now I know I'm sure this after saying this, I'm just gonna bring the letter that Al Costas wrote a few months ago. Uh, and I had talked to Al the next day. He pulled the letter out up the internet instantly, and he had said he made a mistake. And he goes, I would never strip you of your belt, even if you were directly under me. He goes, you're a legitimate grandmaster. The thing was, he was mad at one of the people that helps us in our organization, and so he retracted the letter and stuff like that. So everything was good on that. We had like a 2-hour phone call or Zoom meeting, and with him and Mr. Hilfiger is the person that helps him out and stuff like that. And he's supposed to write out a letter and stuff like that, but he said let it die down. He'll put the letter out and stuff like that. And, I apologized to him about the video I made. He apologized for the letter he put out. He said, no hard feelings. He's retracted it and everything. So on that part, that's all taken care of. So if anybody questions any of my rank and stuff like that, it don't care. You can see who signed my certificates, and trust me, that day I got promoted. There were several grandmasters that could have signed that day, and I didn't want them to sign it. And I told Senior Grandmaster Vargas, I said, no, I don't want these guys on my certificate, because nobody even knew who they were. They're from Hawaii, and I didn't want them on there. So that goes for that. There you go.
Okay. Well, and you know what I think is kind of crazy about all this too is what always comes up during discussions about this is the 2014 letter for Senior Grandmaster Vargas, where they excommunicated him essentially from KAJUKENBO, which happened in 2014, which is 3 years after this. But I also think it's kind of odd that there was two other people in KAJUKENBO, one being Greg Lagera, who's currently in jail for the same situation, and another KAA black belt that I'm not going to mention his name, that continued to teach, but just wasn't allowed by court order to teach children. But neither of them were actually ousted by the KSDI. And it kind of makes me wonder why, and I kind of wonder, maybe is it because Senior Grandmaster Vargas had quite a bit of information from being the stateside historian, so to speak. So with that said, we'll go ahead and move on here.
Well, on that last comment you made about that, you guys got to keep in mind, the other two are proven guilty. Senior Grandmaster proven innocent and took the blunt of it.
Yeah.
Now you got to keep in mind, Senior Grandmaster owns the KAA.
Yeah.
That's why they attacked him, because he actually owns the KAA legally. That's why they reversed it and made it the new revised to get away from that situation, which is a business move. But Senior Grandmaster actually owned it. So you got to keep that in mind. That's why they attacked him. The other two, what I mean? And Greg Lagera, he's proven he's pretty much guilty. He's in jail right now to this day.
Yeah.
So.
Well, interestingly enough, it's kind of strange because as we're going to step through this here, I want to show this certificate here because this is, probably the last certificate that you got when both Sijo and Senior Grandmaster or Great Grandmaster Gaylord were alive. Where Great Grandmaster Gaylord promoted you to 7th degree in February of 1997. Okay. With that said, I think there's a very good possibility that you may have very well been senior to Kenji or Forback, or at the very least peers with these guys.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that here because here's your certificate, and as you can see, it's 7th degree, signed on 23rd of February 1997, signed Professor Gaylord. And then, of course, some familiar signatures here again, Jim Williams, Pete Morales, Dolores Juarez, Brian Yoshi, I think, is on there too. Yeah.
Yeah, Brian Yoshi's on there.
So we got that, but then let's look at this letter here. Okay, this letter, we'll talk some more about this letter, but what I really want to focus in on this letter of 19 November written by Sijo on Emperado, signed by him and notarized down here at the bottom. That down here under Seagung, you have Seagung Gary Forbach, Seagung Rick Kenji, Seagung Angel Garcia, and Seagung Cherry Ortega. Okay, Seagung at the very most, okay, is 7th degree, right? Well, what's that say? 7th degree. Okay. So we don't know if they were 6 degrees or 7th degrees when that letter was made in 1995. However, I did some more research and I found this ad, okay, in Black Belt magazine from December of 1996. And I can go ahead and pull this up and we can see it down here, Black Belt, December 1996 on page 82. Okay, where it says KAJUKENBO, Seagung Gary Forbach, 7th Dan. Seagung Angel Garcia, 7th Dan. Okay, so we know that those two on December of 96, okay, were both seventh degrees, and this is an advertisement for Fighting Art Arts 97, the Gathering of the Masters. Okay, so I did find that in Black Belt magazine, so that kind of lends it to say that you and Gary Forbach were the same degree level in February of 1997. Okay. And then I did, the only thing I was able to find with Rick Kenji was something he had posted on his own website of when he made Grandmaster, okay, which was 15 June of 2002, okay, which, okay, 1996 to 2002, that's only 6 years later. So 7th degree to Grandmaster, that's pretty quick, isn't it?
Pretty much.
So to me, all the things and all the hype that we're hearing about rank nowadays, you know, practice what I preach, kind of thing. And you go back to that first post that he had made, kind of makes you raise an eyebrow, I think. Same thing here, Gary Forbach, okay? And since somebody had mentioned after my BOA post that I should do my research better and I could find bad things on the internet about anybody to support my ideas, I went ahead and used his book as my reference here. That says Gary was promoted to 9th degree right up here at the top of the second page, 9th degree Grandmaster in July of 2004 by Sijo Emperado. Okay. So there's the date that Gary Forbach was promoted to Grandmaster, okay, as put out by John Bishop in his book.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also, pretty quick. That's a couple more years than Kenji's, okay, but still pretty quick from Seagung to Grandmaster.
Well, of course, that's a big gap.
Okay, but yet neither one of them, as BOA members, well, anyways, I won't get into that. I won't drag that through the mud. But I really think that there's some disparity there when we're talking about standards and how they apply to one person versus another. Okay, so
Well, I've always said when these guys would talk crap and stuff, I always said, don't throw stones if you live in glass houses.
Yeah.
Because they're throwing stones, and trust me, their glass is pretty thin. So and that's just the way it is, and it's just sad, but I mean, that people can't just say something good about somebody or whatever. They have to keep harping on the same crap.
So, and that brings me back to the BOA standards here. Okay, so I'm going to reiterate this because this is what I put out. Okay, when I did my video on the BOA standards, said, hey, these are the BOA standards as put out on the BOA website. Okay, there they are, black and white. Okay, and then the next thing I showed was Ron Steller's downline from the family tree, from the 2022 version of the KAJUKENBO family tree.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And do you see any downlines of black belts on there? I don't. And I said, that's concerning. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I said, I don't want to take anything away from his accomplishments. Okay. But when you're talking about the BOA standards, okay, one of the things that they preach over and over and over again is they vet the people that get submitted to them to decide whether or not they're going to approve them under the KSDI standards to be promoted, okay, to 8th or 9th degree. And what do they do when they vet people? They go and talk to people from the associations that they were a part of and the people that trained with them. Well, in your case, Senior Grandmaster, who are they talking to with regards to vetting you when they vetted you for KSDI? Are they talking to Kelly Gaylord? She's not your peer. She's way junior to what you were. Are they talking to Tim Gagne? Well, he's also way junior to you. And oh, by the way, he was Sid Lopez's black belt.
Yeah.
He wasn't under Great Grandmaster Gaylord. I know this for a fact because I trained with him when he was a less than a black belt. Okay, I believe he was a brown belt, a green belt or a brown belt when I started KAJUKENBO back in 1983, 84. Okay. And I think he got his brown belt when Sijo came to the school in, I think, 1984. Um, and I'm not exactly sure when he got his black belt, but that was at least a year before I left in 1988. So he was Sebok Gagne teaching classes in the Newburgh School under Sid Lopez when I left for the U.S. Navy in 1988. Okay. So who are they asking? That's my point, right? So now they're going to have to ask your juniors. Okay. In fact, weren't you at Ron Estella's black belt test as a black belt?
Yeah, I was with him, not with him, but I was at his black belt test. I think I was around a third or fourth degree, maybe more than third, between third and fourth. I can't remember, but I was one of those degree, and he was getting tested for his black belt under Jim Morez. when Ron Estella came back from his dancing, I guess he used to dance behind the bars at the casinos, whatever, and he had left for a long time. When he came back, he was only a blue belt, and so he had worked out with Jim Morez, and of course, Jim Morez is a good teacher. Can't take nothing from him, and he got him up to for his black belt test, and he did his test, and I was there. It was a long test. Him and Jeff Ortzo, so like I said, I mean, these guys are my juniors, compared to the rest. And then with Tim Gagne, I know for a fact because I talked to Grandmaster Willis before he came under Kelly Gaylord. After Sid, he went to Grandmaster Willis. I wanted to be under him. I guess Ron Estella got a hold of him, playing his little games like he always does, and told him, "Oh, don't go under Grandmaster Willis, go under Palance." And then I don't know what happened with that situation, so I can't comment on that. But then he didn't go there. Then he wound up going to under Grandmaster Gaylord, and then but he didn't train with Gaylord, like 30 years, like he said he did. But now that, like I said, now he's vice president, and he's talking crap about people that they're way above him. So we call him the photo bomber because every picture someone takes, he runs behind, gets a picture with them. That's what he's known as.
Well, and I think something that I would add to say about that. I mean, oddly enough, every time something has happened with some of the KA guys, because generally speaking, there's a couple of Ron Estella's guys that seem to always start this stuff when we're talking about what's going on in social media. And I'll always go to them. In fact, I went to Ron Estella and I said, "Hey, your guys are talking smack. They're talking about a grandmaster. Now they're talking about another senior grandmaster in Hawaii. I don't know that you would approve of that. You might want to put a stop to it." And I also went, reached out to Tim Gagne because my history with Tim Gagne. I used to call him Sifu, even though he was Sebok back then. But I didn't know any better. Obviously, young color belt at that point, right? And I figured, hey, you're the vice president of the KAA. You might want to get a hold of your people and stop this stuff because obviously we don't want to continue this bad trend on social media, right? And not only that, but oddly enough. I know that since we mentioned Sid Lopez, weren't you and Sid Lopez promoted at the exact same time, and he was accepted by the KSDI, and you weren't?
Yeah, that and this is the thing on that is, I did not want to be under KSDI, and got her grandmaster belts, senior grandmaster Gator said, no, I mean, not, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The senior grandmaster Vargas said, no, 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 no. He goes, go ahead and sign up with them. He goes, that way, we're, you know, everything is, you know, everybody has, you know, you're part of everything and stuff like that, just to make them happy. I said, okay. Didn't want to do it. So I filled out my application. And of course, if anybody knows Sid, you can't fill things out like that. I filled out Sid's application. So all I did was just copy the dates off of mine onto Sid's because I didn't know exactly what date Sid's was. So both applications were identical, except for my accomplishments was way more. So that morning comes, Marcus calls me up and he's, well, they got the thing for the KSTI. He's, oh, really? Like I can care less, right? And then, well, they accepted Sid, but not you. I go, what? He goes, why not? And he's, I don't know. And I say, why didn't we be part of him anyway? So the next day I was at the KSTI tournament, the smaller one they had, before they had the guy was start paying for it. And so then I was like, I told Kenji, I said, what's up with this? Oh, I don't know. And he, you know, he's trying to give me the bullshit like he always does, right? And he's like, well, what it was, you weren't in there long enough. I go, really? I had the same exact date Sid Lopez did. And it's the same identical date. I said, how can you say Sid come in, I can't come in? And he's like, oh, don't worry, Jimenez. And he slaps me on my shoulder and he goes, next year. Of course, you know, I'm give me no next year. Because I didn't want to be in the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, so and neither did Sid Lopez. He didn't, but Sid just followed along what everybody said. You know, so on that part, that's what I'm talking about. It's just a politic thing. You know,
Yeah.
if they do a straight shoot from the hip, you know, and do it the right way, and people that's been there, especially like I said, you know, myself and you know, Kenji, we held the same rank, you know, coming up. So, you know, to give me that, you know, and I go with my gambling thing. I played poker long enough. You guys sit there and bullshit me. You know, it's who likes who and who, you know, who pays more, and it's just a game for those guys.
Well, I mean, it goes back to the same thing too when we were talking about you know, different standards. You know, I mean, they threw they threw out Senior Grandmaster Vargas, but they didn't throw out Greg Lagera. But I
Yeah.
also, when I was talking to Grandmaster Ortega, uh, he had mentioned that, uh, and I guess I'm probably going to mention this later, but when Glenn Fraticelli was promoted, right, he was a part of that. And he said that, and I asked him about his background at KAJUKENBO, and he said, "Oh yeah, Greg Lagera promoted him."
Oh, let me tell you on that. Yeah, this is funny because I didn't even know I've been in KAJUKENBO since I was a little kid. I didn't even know who Glenn Fraticelli is. You know, then I saw him talking crap about me and about association, and you know, he's playing like, you know, saying things you shouldn't be saying. So I asked Greg, I go, who the hell is this Ben Fratelli? He goes, oh, he's one of my black belts. So I said, okay, so I left it alone. And I even told Greg, I go, I don't really remember him ever in a tournament, everything like that. He goes, Greg didn't say anything. And then I know why later. If anybody knows Greg, and this is the problem Greg Lagera had, he was, and that's why he lost a lot of respect for that. He'll promote anybody he wants to promote. He don't care if you did karate or not. That's just the way he is. So later on down the line, I asked him, but did he actually work out with you? He says, no. He goes, I'll tell you what happened. He goes, we're at a picnic or a barbecue at someone's house. He goes, you know how I am. He goes, I got on a goddamn lawn chair and I told everybody in the backyard, kids, fathers, mothers, he goes, and Glenn Fratelli was standing back there. I said, look, everybody in this backyard is all promoted to black belt and KAJUKENBO under me. I go, so that's how he got promoted in KAJUKENBO? He goes, yeah, he never worked out with us. He goes, I just promoted everybody in the backyard. He goes, you know how I am. He goes, and he goes, you know, I'm an idiot sometimes, you know, and I do stupid things. He goes, he just ran with it. So, yeah, that's the part. Like I said, I really don't know Glenn Fratelli, so I don't know why he would, you know, in the past talk crap about me or whatever, but somebody that got promoted in KAJUKENBO that way, which was never worked out with those guys, and then turns around knowing two forms, and I got this from somebody well known, and Jiu-Jitsu gives him a grandmaster belt. and nobody says anything.
Hmm.
And then they put him under in charge of the KSTI, and he's made a mess of things. You
Hmm.
know, and again, like I said, I have nothing personal against him. I'm not attacking him. I'm just telling that it's fact. And this came
Yeah.
from Greg Laguerre's mouth, not he said, she said, because I asked Greg.
Well, interestingly enough, it's not on the family tree under him, but anywho, so I got this next one. This is a response to my BOA post that I did with the first two slides where I posted this and then posted the family tree. Okay. And this is a post here from Ron Esteller. It says, I'm posting this not to brag, but as a response to some that have questioned my qualifications to be a Grand Master, as in their opinion does not meet the requirements set by the BOA. 40 plus years in martial arts, check. One of the requirements is having black belts that have black belts, although it does not reflect that on the family tree. Thank you for affirming what my family tree says. That requirement is also met. Because Martin Gomez has Rachel Gonzalez, and DJ Estella ran the gym for 9 years and has some, but under my list. Check. Um, Many instructors have black belts that go out and open their own dojos, but most of mine have stayed with me in our dojo. I feel that as a testament as their love to me and our Ohana, and this marks 40 years as a business, no breaks, no stops, teaching every class every day. But yet up here, DJ Stiller ran a gym for 9 years, so I don't understand how he contradicts himself right there. But I have now been teaching steadily as a business. Okay, there's the key word, business. Longer than my teacher, my teacher's teachers, and my teacher's teacher's teacher. I have continued my personal study, but not sitting on my laurels with my feet on the desk, training over 20 years in three different systems. Those teaching ranks were not given, but earned. Some of those questioning never stood on the line across from me, never touched gloves with me, or anybody else for that matter. So to you, I say anytime, anywhere, which I assume he's talking to me when he said that. But I did touch gloves with somebody. In fact, I touched gloves with Grandmaster Tim Gagne before he was a black belt when I was under Sid Lopez. So whether he'll admit that or not, is another thing. And a matter of fact, when people question me about my time under Lopez, I had mentioned that and said, well, if you have any questions on my time with Lopez, just feel free to ask your vice president, Grandmaster Gagne, as he was there and made black belt while I was there. And he can attest the fact that I was a green belt and then I spent 5 years training under Grandmaster Lopez. However, he kept his mouth shut. So how's that for integrity? Uh,
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, Sifu Steve Miller, who is one of his black belts, actually attested to the fact that I was under Lopez and I, in fact, did train there, as well as Beth Bailey in an email where she even vouched for me and said that we were both green belts at the same time, and that she was up for a brown belt in that year, and I would have been there with her with that brown belt test, but I broke my hand a week and a half prior to. But that's not neither here nor there, and this video is not about me, so it's moving right along. Oh, what do we got here? We got, speaking of, standards and whatnot, we've got somebody wearing a Sijo belt right next to Rick Kenji. Who is that? Is that Carlos Bunda? Okay.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Yep. And then, oh, we got a picture here of KSDI BOA picture, and sadly this is a picture of when Senior Grandmaster George Gaanana passed away. And I threw a comment on here a while back here and said, aside from Sijo, he was the most senior KAJUKENBO Grandmaster. If you know, you know. And I wanted to see if anybody said anything. And that's just because, essentially what I was told by a grandmaster in Hawaii is that he's actually the only grandmaster in KAJUKENBO that's promoted to 11th degree. Evidently, uh, Uncle Frank promoted Clarence to 10th degree, and Sijo wasn't very happy about that, so he promoted Grandmaster Hanana to 11th degree and made himself a 12th degree. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't have any paperwork to back that up, but that's what I was,
I have no idea on that. Yeah, I have no
but interesting.
idea. I know I talked to one of the grandmasters a couple of days ago, and he did say that he made him 11th degree because his Imperator was mad,
Yeah.
But
Which is kind of a cool little bit of, KAJUKENBO trivia there. Um,
Yeah, and I didn't know that. To be honest with you, I didn't really know that until just recently. You know, it was
yeah,
brought to my attention. You know,
and I couldn't find anything. In fact, everything I saw about him, he seemed like a really good dude.
well, my opinion on the whole thing, to be honest with you, is I like Grandmaster Luna. I don't know everybody's personal business behind closed doors. I mean, nobody knows anybody's stuff. My opinion, he's the one that should take over KAJUKENBO. He's the one that should be the one that took over because he's the one that should have took it over.
Yeah. Well,
That's my
hold that
opinion.
thought because I'm gonna get to this next thing here real quick, which is going to support that line of thinking here. So I don't want to cut you off on that, but we're going to talk about that
Okay.
here in a second. And then here's another Sijo belt, Angel Garcia. Okay. Interestingly enough, both of those guys. Okay. Well, let's talk about this first before we get into that. Okay, this is the Sijo's like in the event of my death. Okay, I want my sons. Okay, and it starts off with Clarence Imperato, which is Clarence Luna Imperato, right? You were just talking about. Uh, Adrian Imperato, A. Imperato, Alvin Imperato, and Arthur W. Imperato to continue to my work in KAJUKENBO system and ensure that the KAJUKENBO system remains in the Imperato family. All instructors in the KAJUKENBO system are to keep on teaching the KAJUKENBO system with dedication and faith and will not bring shame or disgrace to the names of the creators of the KAJUKENBO system. And he lists all the founders. And then he says, let it be known that my sister, Professor Dici Imperato, who is my business administrator for the KSDI organization worldwide, shall be the next head Grand Master of the KAJUKENBO system. Okay. Until she sees fit to turn over the responsibilities of Grand Mastership to my sons. Okay, I have chosen whose names appear below to be the advisors and helpers to Professor Dici Imperato. Okay, and then of course it goes through and it lists a bunch of ninth degrees, eighth degrees, Sigungs, and Sifus that obviously he felt would make suitable advisors and people that he obviously trusted to assist her in that effort. Okay, with that said, you notice that there's a couple here, Professor George Kahanana and Professor Jaime Vasquez, that are underlined in red. And from my understanding, the reason those are underlined in red from talking to the Grand Master who gave this to me is because in reality, Professor Jaime Vasquez was senior to George Kahanana. He was actually a ninth degree, and Kahanana was an eighth degree when this was written. And then, of course, there was the unknown promotion where Professor George Kahanana was promoted to 11th degree, which then made him senior. And actually, Professor Jamie Vasquez was evidently stripped by Sijo for one reason or another. Had something to do with Angel Garcia, but we didn't get into all the particulars behind that. But I do want to bring the attention down to the Sigung level where you see all this green. Okay, where we already talked a little bit about this, where it was Sigung Gary Forbach, Sigung Rick Shinji, Sigung Angel Garcia, and Sigung Cherry Ortega. Okay. And this was written 19 November 1995. Then again, let's make this big so people can see, signed by Sijo. Okay.
Notarized.
So, a notary public. Okay, so Sijo had to provide ID and sign it in front of this person who signed it and stamped it, sealed it, and delivered it right here in San Diego County. Okay, uh, stating that these are his wishes. Okay, so then we move on to this video. Well, let me pause that for a second. Okay, now one of the things that I don't really understand is okay, these are his wishes. This is what he wrote down. This is what he said he wanted to happen. Okay. And Grandmaster, you were just saying that, in your opinion, uh, it ought to be Clarence Luna, right? Now, I think that one of the reasons why it wasn't was that, as pointed out by several people, is that Clarence Luna is not Clarence Imperato, okay? But he was his stepson, from my understanding, uh, and he had accepted him as his own, and he put it on his will and testament, if you will, that says, I want my sons, and he's the first one listed,
Sure.
right?
But keep in mind too, for myself, even if he's a stepson, I mean, I don't know how long he raised him, whatever, or been with him and stuff like that. If he's his stepson, you treat him like a son. He's still a son. It doesn't make a difference his blood run through him. If he's treat him as a son, that's how it should be. But in my opinion, the ones that don't know KAJUKENBO should not be running it. The one that knows KAJUKENBO, which is Clarence Luna, should be the one to be running it.
And
Okay.
I think one of the reasons why that didn't happen is it was made clear to me that essentially Dici and Clarence never got along. And she never really cared much for him. Kind of a thing. But not only that, but I'm gonna play this video for you here, okay? And I want you to pay attention to who's actually on the video camera end of this video. So clearly we have Dici Imperato here, who's going to be talking here in a minute, and this will probably shed some light on one of the reasons why, or at least one of the reasons she used to try to justify why she did not go with Clarence Imperato or any of the other Imperato boys that are listed there. So let's go ahead and play this real quick so you can see what this is about.
So my brother took Clarence and worked on him and then taught him KAJUKENBO. So Clarence decided he was big, you know, he was going to be big. And how I lost respect from Clarence is that when my brother had his quadruple bypass, he was living in a on Liddell Street. The old hotel. Okay. So Clarence went to see my brother and told my brother if my brother would go and teach this class because he had something else he had to do. Well, my brother didn't feel well because he just had his quadruple bypass and he stayed in bed. So nobody went to teach the class. So Clarence went up to a Capelins and went to see my brother. And he said, how come he wasn't in the class? Now this is wrong, okay? My brother told me all of this.
Oh, no.
And then he grabbed my brother and pulled him in and rammed him against the wall.
Clarence did that?
Told me that in the hotel room.
Well, who did that though?
Clarence.
Oh, okay.
So my brother and Clarence would grab my brother and did like that. So my brother told Clarence, if I was strong, I'd kill you. Clarence never said nothing and brought my brother down.
So what he's trying to do, rebel?
No, he wants to be in charge.
Right.
He's not an emperor. They go down the bloodline.
Right.
After me come my son. After my son come my grandson. They're all emperators.
It should be in that order, you know. Like
Yeah.
The lineage.
Lineage, the family name and the lineage.
Yeah,
So my son, my grandson.
whoever the creator should stay in that family, as long as they're involved.
And they're all KAJUKENBO.
You know,
My
it's not-
son teach
you know.
Wing Chun and KAJUKENBO.
See what happens, because I've seen it happen. His country here, this guy comes from Taekwondo or something.
No, not in the Emperor family. Don't,
And
not
you-
as long as I'm living.
And you took under Professor Chow lessons?
You better believe it. And Mitosi.
Oh, Matosi too.
Yeah, I go back long ways, you know.
That was kind of an interesting little video, and I know that the audio on that's probably not the strongest. I'll try to pump that up a little bit here when I go and I edit
Yeah,
it.
because I couldn't hear it on my end.
But could you hear who the guy behind the camera is?
No.
That's Senior Grandmaster Vargas.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, doing the behind the camera. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
Dici, and that's Mike Young, I believe.
Yeah.
This was taken just prior to the Hall of Fame induction for Senior Grandmaster Vargas in 2013, 2014-ish. So right before that letter was written, and everybody likes to say that he was already cast out of KAJUKENBO. It doesn't look like it to me, since he's doing this interview here with Dici.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out as well. Not only that, but also her reasoning behind why Clarence Imperato was not going to take over KAJUKENBO.
Well, on that, like I said, nobody was there behind closed doors. Do I think that somebody grabbed somebody after having a bypass and grabbed him by his chest and do all that stuff? Not seriously, But
Yeah.
I heard that someone said he slapped Imperato. Okay, but when I researched it and talked to some of the older grandmasters, they said no, that was just a tale. He never touched him.
Mm.
Just like when Tessa was supposed to have slapped Al Costos at a meeting, that never happened. But the rumor went around that Tessa slapped him, but it was all false. So see, that's what I'm saying. These they say rumors, and that could be just DG's opinion. So that way she get her sons in there. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Yeah. Oh, and then I'm going to this one here. Okay. So that was kind of, I think, a video of Dichi kind of justified passing him over. Um, but also she stated that we're going down the bloodline and we're going down her bloodline, not Sijo's bloodline.
Exactly.
And that was kind of interesting, I thought, as well. So that brings us to Adrian Imperato. Okay, he's deceased. But this is his son right here. Okay, Michael Jolie Imperato. And he actually runs the Imperato My Bloodline KAJUKENBO school there. I think that's in Hawaii. Um, okay, but this is just a screenshot of his Facebook page right here. And then, of course, there's Alvin Imperato, who I think was also probably one of the most qualified to probably take over because he was a grandmaster. And I know he made some people nervous in the BOA when he started to resurface again. Because when I was doing the interview with the grandmaster from Hawaii, he played me a an audio recording, which actually I think it was a video recording that they were talking about it and saying, hey, that they were concerned because he had resurfaced and was getting active in KAJUKENBO again, so they were getting kind of concerned. But unfortunately, he recently passed away, and but I think he probably was more suited to fulfill Sijo's wishes than anybody else. You know, um, as far as being bloodline and everything else. So if you want to discount Clarence and say that thing did actually happen with Clarence, which I don't know, you know, you hear a lot of different stories and a lot of different reasons, but she was in charge, and that's where really things I think started to happen, and why things are kind of the way they are today are some of the things that happened under Dichi's watch. But with that said, then there's Arthur Imperato. And from my understanding, it was Arthur Imperato really wasn't interested in taking his place in KAJUKENBO and did wants absolutely nothing to do with all the politics and the nonsense that's going on nowadays in KAJUKENBO. But I do know that Adrian's son is pretty interested in getting involved in KAJUKENBO, and it should be interesting to see, what happens with that in the near future. Okay. So once again, back to this. Okay. Uh, you know, there it is right there. That's Sijo's wishes. Clarence Imperato, Adrian Imperato, Alvin Imperato, and Arthur Imperato. Okay, that's not what happened. Okay, I went to Dichi, and then she kind of did a switcheroonie and went down her bloodline. Okay.
I feel I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate mail on this one, but again, I already know DT though well, but she's the one that pretty much gave a kiss to Yaya Black Eye, and he should have went straight to Luna. Luna could have ran it right. She was selling certificates and promoting people that shouldn't be promoted, and I'm not saying anything bad about her because God, soul she passed, but like I said, she should have never put her in charge. I think that's the mistake that they made.
Yeah.
You know.
But and again, a lot of these people have passed and everything, right? But the people in charge are way down here at the Seagung level, right? These
Yeah.
are the people that are running the BOA now, right? And like I said, these are your peers, and there's a lot of senior people, i.e., there's a couple here, Professor Aldo Cruz and Professor Aldo Cascos. Okay, they're both grandmasters now, and actually, Aldo Cascos was just promoted to great grandmaster, right? During the last KSDI event, and we'll show that here again later too.
Usually, Al usually never. I know he's a 10th degree in this other thing, but he always goes by. He never goes by grandmaster. He always goes by
Yeah,
C, and he usually goes by the 9th degree thing.
yeah, yeah. So. And again, I don't want to cast any shade on anybody. I'm just showing what's in black and white. You can all draw your own conclusions, you can do your own research. But once again, I don't really understand how, other people can't come up with some of these same conclusions or possibilities on their own, and look at these things and go, let me ask these questions, and wonder why things are the way they are. Um, and I just, I think
Well,
talked about
in a business point of view, and like I said, in the past I've had several different businesses and stuff. If I got a staff of people on one business and it's just not working right, I'll clean the whole house. Everybody's fired. Everybody's gone. I'll bring in a new staff in. I'll train them the right way, in whatever business it was, and stuff like that. I won't keep the same thing because it's not going to change. And this is what, in KSDI, my opinion, and it's just not my opinion, several different opinions. That's why a lot of the senior grandmasters that had passed that we had talked to you a while back said they don't be part of the KSDI because of the BOA, and so I don't know, throw names out, but certain people that are heads of the BOA and stuff, they don't be around. The KSDI should clean house, start fresh. Stop with the, I like her, I don't like him, I like her, I don't like that guy, I like this person. Well, yeah, we'll let that person in. Oh, this much money? Okay, yeah, you can come in. They need to get rid of all that stuff. And I don't want to hear, oh, we're gonna make country, we're gonna bring Imperado's, legacy. We're gonna keep it going. That's not a legacy. That's just total bullshit. It's making a mess. You're gonna make a legacy. You work on the man. You stop all the bullshit and all the crap back and forth with each other. Everybody get along with everybody. Like I said in my other video, of all the different federations and associations would get along and stop worrying about the other person. It would be a great time. But that will never happen.
Yeah.
But that's my opinion. And several different grandmasters, they said if they clean the house, the KSDI board and BOA and the other ones, they clean the house and start fresh, they'd come back.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, they're having in-house problems, and that's what they need to do. And I'm not gonna throw hate on anybody because I'm not gonna do that. But that's what they need to do.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to bring up this next screenshot here because this is something that John Bishop posted in the KAJUKENBO Cafe and also in Martial Talk, stating that there is no successor, right, to Sijo. This was posted 1 August of 2011. Okay. And many grandmasters and a few professors signed on to this post, right? And if you look down here on this post on who signed this, okay, you'll notice that most of this is the leadership of the BOA, okay, leadership of KSDI, which now are BOA members, okay. So a lot of these people, okay, are all BOA members, right, or leadership in the KAA, okay, or other organizations.
Yeah.
But once again, what was Sijo's wishes? He says there's no successor. Okay, his wishes were that his sons took over. He designated Dichi his successor until his sons could take over. Okay, so there was a successor designated. He wanted to keep it in the family. He wanted to keep it in the bloodline. Okay, now let's talk about the BOA. Okay, the BOA likes to exert their power and say that, hey, we were designated by Sijo to promote 8th and 9th degrees. Okay, well, that's not what the certificate says. And one thing you look at the certificate is something I want to point out. The only senior grandmaster on here is George Kahanana. Okay. He's the head. Okay. Then it was Dichi. Then it was Rick Kenji, Angel Garcia, Jan Loren, Vince Black, and Gary Forback. And the text on this certificate specifically states that the Board of Advisors to Sijo will be responsible for the screening of potential KSDI members being promoted to professor and grandmaster. Sijo will give the final yes or no. Sijo has the power to supersede the Board of Advisors. E.g., if the Board of Advisors recommends yes on a potential member and Sijo said no, then it's no. Okay, which kind of goes without being said, because he is Sijo, right? Okay, but that's the text of the certificate. Okay. And the thing that I find is kind of odd about, a lot of these things that get posted is you'll note there's no dates on it, right? Which kind of makes it a little harder to track things, right? But here's the video. Okay, I'm gonna back this up again and start this. This is the video right here, and I believe this is Senior Grandmaster Kahanana talking, and that's obviously Sijo in the middle.
This Board of Advisors to Sijo will be responsible for the screening of potential KSDI members being promoted to professor or grandmaster for Sijo to give the final yes or no.
Basically, he just read the certificate just like I did.
Board of Advisors, my Board of Advisors, not for your folks, it's for me.
Says, this is my Board of Advisors, not for you folks. This is for me. Okay. So nothing there would lead you to believe that he's giving the BOA any power to decide anything. He's giving the BOA the ability to make a recommendation to him to decide who should be promoted to 8th and 9th degrees. Okay. Now, I wanted to bring this up because after my BOA video that I made, John Bishop posted that my research lacks credibility. I cherry pick bits and pieces of information that supports my opinion, and I don't verify any of it with other sources. Well, I played both of those videos during that video, and I think that came right from the horse's mouth, okay, and is written in black and white on the certificate designating the BOA. I'm not cherry picking anything. Okay, it's in black and white. It's Sijo talking. It's Senior Grandmaster Kahanana talking. Okay, but then he goes ahead and he verifies exactly what I said. Okay, validates it and then reiterates it. Okay, so he goes on to say, it supports my opinion and don't verify any of it with other sources. Or if the information has changed over the decades, you infer that the BOA's duties expired when Sijo died because he didn't say that it was to continue. Okay, because he didn't say it was to continue. So he just said it, didn't say that it was to continue after his death. He also didn't say that it was dissolved after his death. So he just reiterated my inference and said exactly the same thing that I said in my video in his criticism of my video. Right? So this is a perfect example of let's twist the truth, folks. All of that was talking in present tense. None of that was future tense. Okay. He didn't say I want the BOA to take over and run things after I'm gone. He said I want Dichi to run it until my sons are able to do so. And he pointed several people to help them and to advise them. Okay. So with that said, once again, the BOA is a snake.
Yeah.
And he said snakes are going to come out. And that's exactly what they did, in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
No disrespect to anybody who's on the BOA. Okay. Because y'all earned your place in what you do in KAJUKENBO. You're all grandmasters, and much respect to y'all for that. However, okay, the direction you're taking us in is in my opinion, not a good course to steer. Let's just put it that way. So I kind of lost my place here, but we'll go ahead and go here. And like I said, they don't put dates on that, right? But luckily, I found this, page in Angel Garcia's book. Okay, whereas down here underneath the picture, it says in 2007, I think he wants to inform you that Sijo Imperator decided to create the BOA, the Board of Advisors. Okay. So right there in 2007, okay, where he was appointed as a member of the BOA along with 4 other Grand Masters. And he lists them right there. George Kahanana, Rick Kinji, Gary Forback, and Vince Black. Okay. And there that matches what's on the certificate. Okay. Again, right here. Okay. So that's what's in black and white. That's what was designated. Okay. So now Rick Kinji puts out a post in April of 2016 talking about the BOA members and who's active and who's resigning. Okay, which I thought was kind of interesting. So we have great Grandmaster Carlos Bunda, who's active, Senior Grandmaster Gary Forback, who's active. We got Grandmaster Edmund Lewis, who's active, Grandmaster Phil Galinas, who's active, Senior Grandmaster Rick Kinji, who's active. A Senior Grandmaster George Kahanana resigned due to health. Senior Grandmaster Emil Batista resigned due to personal reasons and health. I heard there's some more to that story. And I don't know that he, resigned due to health reasons, that I think it had something to do with.
It wasn't. I talked to Emil. I know the reason. I'll leave that one out.
Yeah, so there's probably a lot more to that story. Greg Master Angel Garcia, no contact. And Vince Black, no contact. Okay, so and there's some more stories that go along with those peoples and those names. That probably wouldn't do any good for us to talk about that during this video. I mean, it's kind of just they're not good stories, let's just say. Once again, he goes on to assert authority here as Sijo's board is to promote 8th and 9th degrees, keep our system strong and pure. Everyone has a choice.
Yeah.
And he reiterates the 30 years of, and everything else, right? But once again, he does talk a little bit of trash down here at the bottom as well. But once again, I just don't think that that's the right way to do it. I think if you're leadership in KAJUKENBO, then you have responsibility. Okay, responsibility also has accountability along with it, and I don't think anybody's held anybody accountable for what has happened and what happened. Starting under Dietschy's watch, with a lot of the promotions that happened and certificates and stuff, and
but on the BOA thing, the thing that I talked to Grandmaster Willis about this too, in Grandmaster New and stuff. I just can't see somebody else giving me the approval to promote one of my guys, because let's say obviously it's like who likes who thing, who's the cool kids in class, I mean that's the little thing they do. So if I got a student that's ready for his 8th degree, and I come to the BOA and say, yeah, I want him to recognize 8th degree, and they don't like me or they don't like the student, they're gonna go, nah. Even though I trained the guy for 30 years or whatever, they have the power to turn around and say no.
Yeah.
Just like they did with me and Sid. Okay. So that's the only problem with on something like that. I mean, they can have, a board, but on the 8th and 9th degree thing, like I said, it's not fair, and it's not like, okay, we're gonna come out to Turkey. This is when Kenji talked to those guys in Turkey and Corpus. Oh yeah, we're gonna go out and we're gonna promote everybody out in Turkey. Those guys didn't work out. They work out with them in Turkey, but they went to Kate from under Bo and Stephen promoted them.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then they point fingers at everybody else. Oh yeah, you're gonna go and teach people out of a different country and never worked out with you. I don't remember those guys from Turkey working out with many of those guys.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy back east when Kenji was trying to promote everybody to the next degree for $200, and the guy had to stop it. I mean, that kind of stuff's not brought up.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is I think one of the big things there that's it's kind of funny is let's just take uh, Email Batista here. Okay, so now if Email Batista wants to promote somebody, he asks somebody that's junior to him whether or not he can promote somebody to professor or grandmaster.
Yeah, and people like Email Batista, God rest his soul, and stuff like that, and the older guys that have passed away. Do you actually think I know these guys? Do you actually think they're gonna go and go, can I? They can do what they want to do.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
And that
I
was
just
one of the responses I think that Rick Kinji had given me too to my BOA video is that hey, any grandmaster can promote anybody they want into the organization, and they do. And but
sure.
then he goes on to say even those that that they spent no time on the mat with, so there's always a negative connotation that's brought up with that, you
Well,
know.
well, well, that's a comment that Glenn Felicelli made that started the whole thing about him. He said that basically the same thing. Anybody can promote anybody, but if they don't go through KSDI or the BOA, they're not recognized in KAJUKENBO. Only people who go through KSDI are legitimate KAJUKENBO people. That's such bullshit. It's not even funny. And I even talked to Rikinji on that. He said he shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that causes problems because then everybody else that's not a KSDI or it's a different organization, they're gonna say, hey, wait a second. So that's kind of like manipulating. Well, if you're not KSDI, then that means you don't count. So you should be under KSDI. And that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, and another thing that's going on nowadays too is there's changes being made to the family tree. I talked to one grandmaster that said that his black belts are being moved from those that promoted them. He said that every year he has less people on the family tree under his name than the year before for the last couple of years.
On the family tree, let me tell you something. When Galinas was running it, you don't take any. Whoever gave you your black belt, that's who you're under. Let's say so and so's mad at so and so. Well, I don't want to be under him. Could you put me under this guy's name? If you do that, then the family tree means nothing. Means nothing at all whatsoever. And that's how it works. Whoever you got your black belt from, it doesn't make a difference who gave you that black belt. That's who you're under. And you want to branch off and you guys to do whatever, that's great, but that's who he gives you your rank. Now I'm just going to give you my thought on this. They handed it over to Glenn Felicelli to handle. If he keeps it the same way Galinas kept it, and not move people's names all around because so and so don't like nobody, and I don't like that guy, and no one likes this guy, that family tree is going to fail. And I would never buy one that it would do that to you. Leave it the way it was supposed to run all these years. But this is going to be my prediction. So I'm going to say this but like I said, it's just a prediction. They're going to take it. They're going to swap all names all over the thing. They're going to start taking people out, this and that. Well, this guy got this guy got that. Let's take them out. Then it's going to be, it's $20 or whatever for people to be on the family tree. You watch, and that's my prediction is going to happen. So hopefully that doesn't happen, and they keep it the same way that Galinas kept it. My opinion.
Can only hope. I mean, I'd be interested to see what today's family tree looks like. I don't know if I want to pay for another copy of it to see what it says. But I'd be willing to bet that it doesn't match what I put up during my BOA video, and that some of that magically changes.
It's just like if, let's say that they wrote that letter about Vargas and kicking him out of KSDI or whatever, Let's say they took him off the family tree. Then that means they have to take off all his black belts, including myself, Jim Juarez, Ron Esteller, everybody that's under that lineage needs to be all taken off. So this is why they can't do that.
Yeah.
Because it would, especially our group down below takes the whole corner up. It would just be gone. Totally be 100% be gone. So that's why you can't do that because you can't go, okay, well, we'll take Vargas out because he got accused of this. We're gonna take Jimenez out because he's an asshole. We can take him out. Well, we'll go take Jim Juarez and we'll put him under Gaylord or Ron Esteller under Gaylord. And you start zigzagging people all over that tree, then the tree's worth nothing. It's worth not what the paper is written on.
Well, and I'm here to tell you, I mean, I've been told by another grandmaster, and obviously not you, that that's been happening to him. That they've been removing people from him, putting them under other people. You know, um, so I would ask what's being done to ensure the integrity of the tree is maintained. You can't cut off limbs, drill a hole in another part of the tree, and jam that
Yeah.
twig inside the other part of the tree and expect it to live. You know, um, it's something that needs to be discussed, it needs to be addressed, and it needs to stop. Right?
Well, I got accused of, and I started laughing when I heard this. They accused me of so much stuff I couldn't even, I lost track, but one of them was that I was padding my family tree with all these people that never trained with me and they're from back from different countries. I don't do that. I think there's two on there that are under me that's on there. If I did that, you'd need 4 or 5 sheets of paper to cover it all. But I wouldn't do that because that's exactly they didn't, they're not really my black belts. They're under me. I could say that they're my black belts, but they're not my black belts.
Yeah.
And so I mean, when I heard that, I just started laughing. I go, look at my family tree. You tell me, what do you see? All these people. There's only a couple of them on there, and they've been with me for years. That's on there. All the rest of them, I get people every day. Yeah, I want to be under you. Da 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 da. I can put them on my family, run and put them on my family tree, but I don't do that.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's silly.
Yeah. So it is what it is. I mean, what can you do, right? So next thing I got coming up here, and I wonder if this is actually, hold on, let me see. Nope. Let me go back one. Okay, so before we even get into this, I want to talk about essentially in November of 2017, there was a Frank Ordonez Memorial. Okay. And according to my source here, another grandmaster in Hawaii said that Kimo Glenn and the BOA had a private meeting during that Frank Ordonez Memorial in November of 2017 to work out details and a peace offering of sorts where concessions were made on both sides regarding um, the way forward with the leadership in KAJUKENBO. Okay. And what came out of that was the BOA KSDI Imperato Family Council joint statement of 2017 2018, which is this document right here, I believe. Okay. Where essentially, okay, this comes out, it says is to integrate their efforts to carry out their duties as empowered by Sijo. Okay. Um, as they understand or want us to believe, to be designated by Sijo. Okay. So it comes out to read, it says the KSD administration, Imperato Family Council, KSDI Worldwide, and Board of Advisors are honored to give this joint statement to all KSDI and KAJUKENBO. The KSDI and BOA have agreed to fully integrate their joint efforts to carry out the duties imparted to them by Sijo Adriano D. Imperato, the founder of KAJUKENBO Self-Defense Institute. Each will do diligence to their respective duties to ensure the integrity and the future development of KAJUKENBO. Okay, now this document is essentially where they consolidate their power. Okay, where the BOA comes out and basically states that they are charged as the governing body that promotes and recognizes the prestigious ranks of KSDI 8th degree professor and 9th degree Grand Master. Okay, now nowhere in any of the documentation that I've showed you thus far did Sijo give the BOA that power. This document is the first place where you're going to see that they say that they have the power to promote to 8th and 9th degrees. Okay. And now this is part of that concession, okay, of where there was some consternation and there was consternation by the current leadership, okay, of Dichi going against Sijo's wishes and going down her bloodline versus his. Okay. And I'll show you those screenshots here in a minute on some of that. But this document is where we actually start getting into that. Okay. This is not what Sijo, okay, or Senior Grandmaster Khan, and that's stated in their videos, okay, or in that certificate. Now, it also states that Sijo, okay, is KSDI and BOA recognizes Sijo is the only 10th degree and as the art's only Sijo. There is not and never will be a successor to Sijo. Okay, now I want you to notice that this is signed by Great Grandmaster Carlos Bunda. Great Grandmaster, isn't that a 10th degree?
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
So there will be no Great Grandmasters, but he signs it Great Grandmaster. Okay. Now on the next slide, I'm going to show you right here, he's wearing a Sijo belt, 10th degree belt. Looks pretty comfortable wearing that belt right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And now here, we just promoted a BOA member to 10th degree during the 2024 KSDI event. Okay. That guy on the left, Sifu Gary Forback. Okay. Don't want to take anything away from Gary Forback. I really don't. But that letter said no more 10th degrees. He just got promoted to 10th degree. Okay. So did Sifu Al. Okay. You don't want to take anything away from Sifu Al. He's a KAJUKENBO great. Okay. He signed your certificate. Okay. Guy contributed to the foundation of 3 different branches of KAJUKENBO. Okay. I'd say if anybody deserves it, he probably does. Okay. But that document said no more 10th degrees, but the KSDI is promoting people to 10th degree.
Hypocrites.
Which is contrary, okay, to what they said. Okay, why were Sijo's wishes not honored? Okay. Well, in my opinion, it's to keep the BOA in power. Okay, that's what that document was about. Okay, this right here is a letter posted on Dichi's behalf by Texas KAJUKENBO Honda in October of 2012 that designates that Kimo Imperato will be her successor right down here at the bottom. Okay. I would like to announce my successor that will take over KSDI in the future. Doing so, I will ask, and Sijo would agree, that all KAJUKENBO Grandmasters, Professor Sijo, Sifus, and Black Belts recognize and support my son, Professor Jim Kimo Imperato Smith, okay, who has been active in KAJUKENBO all of his life and will do a great job in leading KAJUKENBO. Okay, so this came out in 2012. So this is kind of been socialized quite a bit prior to it actually happening. So keep that in mind. Okay, and I think it references a document. I think I'm crossing my notes here, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so then this, okay, is Dichi's last will and testament, so to speak, in the event of my death, illness, injury, or whatnot. Okay, this is where she also doubles down and says, in the event Grandmaster Kimo Imperato Smith takes over my role and responsibilities as the chief administrator of KSDI worldwide, it will be his responsibility, as well as Professor Joe Imperato Smith and Grandmaster Glenn Fraticelli, to continue the work of the KSDI Worldwide Senior Leadership, Grandmaster Council, and Imperato Family Council to honor Sijo Imperato's wish of keeping the KAJUKENBO alive forever. Okay, and it goes on. Okay, and this is October of 2015. Okay, so it started in 12, October of 2015. Okay, then we go to the next thing. Oh, October of 2015. Well, this is when Glenn Fraticelli was promoted to Grandmaster on May 17th of 2015. So 5 months earlier, he was promoted to Grandmaster.
Not too bad, only knowing 2 pinions.
Well, I don't know. Oh, what can I say?
That's what I'm trying to get at is when they do stuff like that, it just puts a black eye in KAJUKENBO. So when
Yeah.
they point fingers at other people for doing stuff, they don't turn around and look what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's funny because in this letter too, she also designated Glenn Fettuccelli, okay, as the deputy administrator of the KSDI. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting as well. Okay, but here's Gary Forback posting on Facebook July 3rd of 2016 following that letter. Okay, a few months later, says to my students in KAJUKENBO family that have been asking me, I do not have any relationship whatsoever with Grandmaster Jimmy Kimmel Imperato Smith. The other guy, or I'm assuming is Glenn Fraticelli, or their group, and do not intend to in the future. Actually, I have only seen them 2 or 3 times at the Vegas tournament. Thank you and God bless Senior Grandmaster Gary Forbeck, Sijo's Boa, student of the great Grandmaster Leo Reyes. Okay. So casting a little bit of shade right there in 2016. Next post, okay, is a conversation between Rick Kenji and another Grandmaster that said that they're just chit-chatting about things, and we want to make sure real KAJUKENBO, the Sijo would love. Thanks for your support. I know we spend a lot of times talking about this. It's our job to protect KAJUKENBO for so many Grandmasters that are not KAJUKENBO. It's making us look bad in the martial arts world. And then this Grandmaster said, then it means that you're going to the event this year, meaning the KSDI event in Vegas. And I know that because I spoke to the Grandmaster that said that. And he says, no, I won't go there this year. 4th of July is family time. He's, oh, okay. So neither one, Forback or Kenji, went to the KSDI event that year. And evidently the turnout was not so good. So that was kind of, in his opinion, was kind of a message that was being sent regarding. Okay. And then that was 2016. And then remember, we talked a little bit about the meeting that took place at the Frank Ordonez Memorial in 2017. Okay, which prompted the letter coming out, the joint letter coming out, which is actually what this post on the right, I believe, is about. Where it says in April of 2018. Okay, but prior to that, April 15th, it says confirmation Grandmaster Kimo Imperato, KSDI BOA completed. Okay, so we went from Gary Forbeck saying, I want no intention of having any relationship whatsoever with this Grandmaster Jim Kimo Imperato Smith, okay, to now he's confirmed by the BOA. And then on the right, 10 days later, they're talking about the same stuff, but this is a KSDI BOA post. Okay. And they talk about the joint statement, because unfortunately this post was, since it was 2 posts put together, doesn't have a very good thing on this right side post, but it is talking about the statement signed and whatnot. So I believe that's the statement right here. So they kind of reversed their course on Jim Kimo Imperato Smith, okay, with that wax statement and the confirmation statement, okay. And like I said, I believe that is talking about this letter right here. Okay. And you'll notice that it's signed by all those parties involved. So we got DT Imperato here, Great Grandmaster Carlos Bunda, Grandmaster Jim Imperato, which is Kimo, Rick Kenji. I'm not sure who this is or this one, but I believe this one's Gary Forback down here on the bottom, because I believe he was the I believe that's his signature right there. Okay, and then the next document we have is a statement from Jim Kimo Imperato Smith, where he issues a letter stating he, as his new role as the KSDI administrator, November 1st of 2018. Okay, so that's following the reversal post that you saw, the joint letter, and now this is him saying, "Hey, I just took over as the KSDI administrator." Okay. So that's kind of an interesting document. Okay, you can go ahead and take your time, blow that up, pause it, read it. Okay, and you can kind of see the timeline and the progression of things that happened. 2012, 2016, 2017, 2018. Okay. And, and essentially, I guess what I'm getting to here is KAJUKENBO needs leadership. Okay. The current leadership by committee is clearly not working. Okay. We need a head to lead us forward and to make tough decisions. Okay. And I ask again, why were Sijo's wishes not honored? Okay. Um, Confirmed by statements that were made following by the BOA video, okay, that I made. Okay. So this isn't my assertion. This isn't Dave living in fantasy land. This is Dave actually looking at what's available on the internet.
Yeah.
Um,
The old saying, too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
well, exactly, and that's really what it comes down to is we need grandmasters and professors who lead. Okay, we need quality versus quantity. Okay, senior grandmasters, not youth. Okay, not people that are just looking to be in power. Okay, we're looking for integrity because integrity is key. Okay, no more of the don't do as I do, but do it as I say. Okay, equal standards, independent of your stature. Okay, just because somebody doesn't like you, that should not have a bearing on whether or not they accept you. Okay, and your contributions that you've made. Okay, juniors should not be making decisions or recommendations regarding their seniors.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, in your case, whether or not KSDI would, promote you to Grandmaster. Okay. Who is anybody in the KAA, okay, that's in a position of authority in the KAA that is senior to you?
Exactly.
The BOA member that represents the KAA is junior to you. So we need to clarify some things, and we need to, look at things and honestly look at the truth, okay? And stop all the games and all the nonsense and stop pointing fingers and stop, being silly, okay? There's another Grandmaster belt. Another one. Another one. Sijo. With a real Sijo, please stand up. So I mean, what else can we do, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and stop the share right there for right now, because there's a lot of other things that we could probably go into and we could talk about, and I know we've probably been on here for a while.
Yeah.
And I know because my throat's kind of a little dry here. And I know that a lot of people probably aren't going to care too much for some of the things that I've said.
I think that they'll believe what they want and stuff like that. And, on the BOA thing, like I said, when I talk about clean house, that's what I was talking about the other day with some of the other grandmasters. I would like to see the ones that are still alive, the old grandmasters on that board. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see. I mean, like Grandmaster
Al Dela Cruz?
Frank Cariaga. I like to see him. Even though he's on there, I'm gonna see him more. Because he's an old timer. Dela Cruz is on there. The Costco's people in that kind of realm to be on that thing. I'm not trying to bash the other guys, but those guys need to all go. And put the old guys up there, because for myself being, their senior, the lower ones. Okay, I'm not gonna sit there and listen to have them tell me who I can promote and who I can't promote. I look up there and I see, all the top guys. Like if I would have seen when they were alive, if I would have seen Gaylord and Batista and people like that, people that I grew up worshiping, going, oh my God, Alan Reyes. Those are the kind of people that then I would have totally 100,000% respect for what they're doing. That's just my opinion. And I said that once before, and someone said, "Oh, it's all new blood." I don't want to hear the new blood. I want to see the people that've been there and done that. I don't want to see people that got Uncle Frank promoted, because he just did, or Greg Rivera promoted her, and then she skipped all over and went to there because he's mad at Gabe and he's on there. stuff like that. And, and I'm not to take nothing away from any of their martial arts ability.
Well, there's a couple other things I wanted to touch on too, was like, for example, you know, I don't know how much you know about the Joe Imperato story, or the pink elephant, um, what happened there and what the circumstances that led up to his death, you know.
Yeah.
Um, you know, what really gets me is we have two KAJUKENBO KSDI designated historians, right? Both of which are retired police officers. Okay. Both of which have got investigative skills that they were taught throughout their time in, serving our nation as police officers, right? And, I know Mitch Powell's done a lot in looking at the origins of KAJUKENBO and the early years and how things have happened. And he's made a lot of videos about that. Um, but what I'd be interested to find out about is how come these two retired police officers haven't looked at the police reports, the witness statements, the autopsy report, from when Joe Imperato was killed. Okay. And how all these things and what we're being told don't really add up to, you know, what all the witness statements and everything else say. I mean, if you haven't read David Taveras' book about the events that night, uh, and I think one of the things that was said was Walter Godine ran away. Well, that's not what happened according to the witnesses. That's not what happened according to his statement that he made to the police at the Pink Elephant, or following the event, you know. So all these things just don't add up, and then there's what all these guys said, and then there's what was officially said later on down the road, and so it's kind of one of those things where what's the real story, and I know that recently, based off of the research that Mitch Powell did, they designated Joe Imperato as a co-creator. Okay.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I almost feel like he did more than that.
Yeah.
And I feel as though that, well, I mean, there's a Black Belt magazine article out there where they interviewed Ramos, okay, and it says some things in that article that kind of made me go, "What?" Like one of the things that it says is that he was a student at the Palama Settlement for 11 years, never once saw Sijo teach a class.
Yeah, I asked one of the grandmasters yesterday about that because I knew you were going to bring that up, and he said the same thing. He said he'd never seen teach a class.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, that's kind of strange, considering that if he's the founder and the only founder that actually pushed KAJUKENBO forward, right? And that's why Sijo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he never taught a class at the Palama Settlement. And from my understanding is Joe used to lock the doors, lock everybody in, and they did class, and people stumbled out of there, like they just got in a bar brawl and got their asses kicked.
Well, and it's funny because this has been Vargas in the very beginning. He was that way. If you didn't bleed that night, it wasn't a good class, and you couldn't see in the windows because it was so steamed up. I remember this is the 70s, and they beat the hell out of each other, and then we'd be all bloody and punched, and stuff like that. Of course, you can't do that now because you get sued, but that's the way it was. And when I was growing up, to be honest with you, even when I got my black belt, I hear certain things about the Imperato thing and all that, this and that, but we could really care less. We just focused on Gaylord. And Gaylord, I have to admit, he was in all the black belt classes. In fact, for the last year or two, the black belt classes were held at my studio. And he was there. He'd come down to my studio once a week. He'd work. I'd take him to my open studio. He'd teach those guys, and then, so he was out there. He didn't sit in a chair, and just point fingers. He was actually working out with everybody, showing the techniques and hitting and stuff like that. So that's one thing I can say about Great Grandmaster Gaylord. He went out there and did it. He wasn't just all talk.
Well, you know what else kind of got me? I think it's the same Black Belt magazine article that was talking about McCandless, right? And one of the things that I remember, and I actually quoted and played a piece of the video where Sijo was interviewed, and he stated that McCandless, you know, was teaching classes at the Palama Settlement, and he saw what they were teaching for KAJUKENBO, and he liked what he saw. And essentially, McCandless wanted to come underneath them and learn KAJUKENBO. And he was willing to start over as a white belt. And Emperor said, no, you're a black belt. You keep your black belt. You'll learn it
Yeah.
eventually by helping me teach. Okay. And I play that cut of video in one of my videos, right? Um, this Black Belt magazine article makes a statement about how when all of Chow's black belts went their separate ways, right? That Emperado went and joined McCandless's Kenpo class at the Palama Settlement. And when McCandless died, Emperado took over the class and renamed it the KAJUKENBO Self-Defense Institute of Settlement. And it was like, whoa, this is the Black Belt magazine article. This isn't, so to me, it kind of makes me go, what? Okay, now I know that some of these people that write Black Belt magazine articles are just, people like us that write an article, submit it to Black Belt, they say it and they print it, right?
Yeah.
But I read that and I was like, whoa, that's completely different than the narrative, that we have, been told, and it's just one of those things. I mean, we have a couple guys, like I said, that are, KSDI historians, right? Well, and that brings up another thought on my fact is how come if we have KSDI archives, those things are hidden from the rest of us? Why don't we all have access to that?
Yeah, they don't want to know. They want to sit back and, play the big Indian, They don't want anybody to know stuff.
Is it because there's people like me, they're going to read it, they're going to go, wow, words me have meaning. And, I'm going to look at this, I'm going to say, okay, that doesn't mean that. That means this. Right? So, and that might be part of it too. I don't know, but I sure would like to have some more transparency in that arena of things and be able to see things and read them for myself. So if we was to put those kind of things online where the rest of us can see them, and obviously we'll never know if we're seeing everything in 100% complete, and I know they talk about, Sijo was writing like a memoirs kind of thing, well, how about putting those somewhere where the rest of us can read it? That'd be
I doubt if he was writing. He's probably somebody. He was having somebody who was telling people certain things.
yeah. So,
but then again, I've been through that with interviews and stuff. I did had nothing to do with karate. Something happened as a murder thing a while back. Anyway, the guy came to my studio and he wanted to do this newspaper article on me because it's Vegas. What happened? I don't want to get into that, but I told him, I said, no. I said, because you guys are going to write something that's not right. And he told me, he says, I promise I won't do that. It took this guy 3 months. And he came in probably twice, sometimes 3 times a week, just to run this article. And it was in the newspaper back then, back then it was like this now, but it was 2 full, complete pages. Both sides, all the way down. It was on this murder thing. And, but he put everything, he let me read it first and I approved it and then he posted it. And because sometimes they twist everything and, I didn't say that, and especially in the newspaper articles and stuff like that. So, you have to take for granted sometimes what some people do write.
yeah.
But just like an article or whatever. But like you said, when you got proof in front of you or you're talking to the person, there's no misunderstandings. So when I tasked Greg Laguerre about Glenn Pacelli, I didn't hear from 3 different people or Joe Blow down the street. I heard it from the guy that did it. So that's how that works. But I just hope 2025 in KAJUKENBO things will get better. And 'cause I know that 2024 is probably the worst year KAJUKENBO had, I think, with the backstabbing and I know it was for me. I mean, I've never. People always talk shit in the past, but never like last year. Just stuff that was made up and stuff. And
what's funny too is and I know that you said it several times throughout this video. Let's all work together to make KAJUKENBO stronger. Let's all work together to build a good, strong family, right? And if they need help, you're more than willing to help them out, and we're willing to have dialogue with just about anybody, and talk to anybody and work with each other. It's not a question of us versus you and you versus us and that sort of thing, and this, like I said, this whole video is not an attack on anybody. This is just hey, look what I found, look what I found, look what I found. Make your own decisions. I have my own opinions.
yeah.
Right? I'm sure you have your own opinions. But what I ask you is, once again, why hasn't anybody else asked these questions? Okay.
Sure.
Why hasn't anybody else come to these conclusions? And I know there's a lot of people that I have, because I've talked to a lot of them, and I've talked to a lot of grandmasters that have come to these conclusions. Okay. But don't want to share that with everybody else. Okay. Because of the backlash that comes along with that. Myself, I really don't care. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm throwing it out there for you guys. I hope you enjoyed what we talked about today. And I hope that maybe, some of you may have more that you can add to this. If you want to just reach out to me in private and share some information with me, fine. That's great. I'd love to hear it. If you want to get together, you want to do a podcast with me, I'd love to have you on my show and talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's learn from each other. Let's work together. I know that there's a movement to have a KAJUKENBO Congress and whatnot to keep KAJUKENBO pure, make KAJUKENBO better, come up with some standards, that sort of thing. Okay, that's great. That's a wonderful idea. Okay, but like I said, if you're going to do that, you need to include everybody. Okay, and we all need to work together, right? You can't have a union and exclude a couple states. That's like having the United States. We have a Congress, but you know what? Hawaii and Washington State are not going to be represented. Okay, but you're going to accept whatever we come up with. That's Congress, gentlemen.
Well, I always said that too. I said this years ago. I said, why don't all just the heads and maybe their vice president get together at a nice restaurant or whatever and have a meeting, like a sit down, and everybody can talk. Not just when all the students come and all the assholes want to fight everybody. I'm talking about you sit down and you have a meeting. Everybody can dress nice. They have a nice dinner. They sit down, all the heads, and you work it out. And exactly that's what needs to be done. If they don't want to work it out, okay, well that's fine. Well, at least we tried. And I said this a long time ago. I want all the heads just get together. Not somebody walking in there. Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass. That type of thing. You sit down with like an adult, a businessman. You sit there and you discuss things.
Yeah. Well, even the mafia can do that, right? They have a sit down.
Have a sit down, and if you really pay attention, they have rules, and those rules aren't broken.
Yeah.
But you go by their rules, and that's it. I mean, that's the way it is now. Is there people left those meetings and got shot and killed? Of course, of course, But they sat down and had the thing, and they nobody wants a war, nobody wants a fight. They all want to work together. So this is why all the heads need to get together. And I would love to put I would love to do that. I would love to get everybody to come on, not a YouTube thing. It'd be kind of hard for everybody to meet someplace, but somehow that we can the main people get together. There's only so many associations, that can get together. I'm talking about KAJUKENBO people, like myself, KEA, KSTI, the Habuno group, people like that. I don't believe anybody out, but I mean, Mr. Willis's group and stuff like that. Get together and just sit down.
Yeah. In fact, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'd love to see that happen. I invite all of you out there who are in charge of your various organizations to do that.
Yeah.
How about we get together, we sit down, we talk, we hash things out, we work it out, we stop having these conversations. You
Yeah.
know, come up with a plan, a way forward. What is our way forward? Okay. Uh, Everybody says there'll never be a successor. Well, Sijo wanted there to be a successor. He wanted to be down his bloodline. Okay. Things didn't happen the way he wanted them to happen. They happened the way Dichi wanted them to happen. Okay. And since then, that's kind of got a little bit perverted along the way. That's my assertion for the information that I've showed you tonight. And I think that that's something that you probably come to that conclusion yourselves if you look at the information that we talked about. There's a lot more information out there. If you want to share some of it, feel free, share it, send it to me.
Yeah.
Make your own video. That's fine.
And
I'm
let me
not
tell you
trying
that
to hurt anybody.
if
I
we ever
want to bring
sit,
us together.
if we ever sit down that and somebody would video the whole thing, that would be like history.
I'd love to see that happen.
Well, it'd be
You know,
history.
if you want to do it on a video, shit, I'll host it.
I know you will. Yeah, of course. Yeah, of
You
course.
want me to turn it on and walk away? I can do that too. I have the platform. I have the subscription to Zoom that can handle it. All you grandmasters want to sit down and talk to each other. You can make that happen.
Yeah.
You want to set something up? We can make that happen too. I know we got an event that's going to be happening in Lake Tahoe next year, or well, this year, I
This
guess.
year.
Now,
Yeah, it's going to be our summit. It's going to be people. I got like probably a dozen so far. People from different countries. They're working on their visas to come and use Excel. But everybody going to
Yeah.
come down, have a workout on the beach. It's all catered, all free of charge. Like we don't charge anything. And so
I don't know.
just to get together. Like a lot of them must speak English, but we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And this invitation goes out to everybody. It doesn't have to be under the Worldwide Kenpo Federation. They can be under anybody, or it should be Taekwondo. They could be whatever, Jiu-Jitsu. Just come work out, or just come and just hang out and eat something and just talk story.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's nothing.
I was going to say, be a perfect opportunity to throw something on the front, throw something on the back, where all you guys can get together and you can chat.
Yeah, I mean,
know,
I mean,
whatever you want to do, or if you want to make it a different time, fine. But let's do it. Let's quit.
Yeah.
Talking shit. Let's quit talking. Stories about each other.
mhm.
Let's quit pointing the fingers. We have our problems. We have our issues. Yeah, there's some people that probably got promoted in different places. That shouldn't have got promoted. But we all have our stories. We all have our mistakes. Okay. And it's up to us to own those mistakes and to move forward and to correct the issues that we have. Okay.
Yeah.
We're willing to talk to you. Senior Grandmaster's willing to talk to you. Okay. Are you willing to talk to him?
Yeah.
Put the ego away. Sit down and talk. Work it out. Okay. And let's move forward together. One family, stronger than ever. Come up with a way forward. What's the way forward? I don't know. Okay. I think we need a head, to be honest with you. I don't think we can do it by leadership by committee. I think that there needs to be a leader, whether that be, Sijo's grandson, whether that be Clarence Imperato Luna, whether it stays the same. I don't know. Okay. But you guys need to figure that out. Okay. I'm just, Dave Charlesworth. Okay. I'm just a seafood. I'm at the bottom of that list. Okay. Maybe one day I'll get up to the top, but that's kind of doubtful, especially with me shooting my mouth off.
Yeah, but you will.
But
You're hanging in there.
But it is what it is,
Yeah.
and I care a lot about KAJUKENBO, and I care a lot about all you out there,
Right.
So all I can say is let's come together as a family and work it out and make things good. So other than that, it's been a long video. It's been a long night. Probably got a lot more things to talk about. I probably skipped half the stuff that was on my list to talk about.
What time is it right now in Italy?
It's almost midnight. So, it's almost it's past my bedtime. I'm an old man,
Yeah, I got so much snow out here. It's not even funny. It's snowing all day.
Yeah, I look like I've been out in the snow with my gray hair.
Yeah, I know. I seen that. All right.
With that said, appreciate it. Appreciate coming out and talking to me there, Senior Grandmaster.
No
And
worries.
I hope that all you out there that are watching the video got something out of it. And let us know in the comments, if you like what you saw, let us know. If you didn't like what you saw, yeah, be gentle. No, you can say what you want. I don't care. It's not
Yeah.
something I've heard before. If I don't like it, I'll just delete it.
Yeah.
No big deal. I'll read it first though.
Sure.
You get your say. But in any case, I appreciate you listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.